Welcome to Interstellar Cosmic Conversations, where we share experiences from our hearts to empower others. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Interstellar Cosmic Conversations. Today, our returning special guest is Emma Stow. Emma is an author, a speaker, an energy healer, and for me personally, I would like to say a soul recognition expert, because that is the most important experience for me. The most relevant experience that I had with her was someone actually seeing me and knowing me. And in so many ways that started my healing journey, and it was so empowering to me. So I want to thank you so much for being here, Emma.
Oh, I am so delighted to be here. As I said, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else right now. And thanks for those kind words.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. And I mean them, they're from the heart.
I know, and it means the world to me. And you know that you also have acknowledged that. And so thank you from my heart.
You're welcome. Okay, well, everyone, today we are going to talk about what it is to live from love. And I just want to share just a little bit to open, but I want to allow Emma to, share, because this is what this is her work, this is her life's work, and this is where she brings healing and empowerment to humanity. And for me, what I think that when one steps into the reality of loving themselves, then there's nothing else but loving that matters. And so the key to living in freedom and love is the journey for me into falling in love with ourselves again. And I feel like that is so important. And then, from that point, we start to explore how to live from love, which is about a state of being. And living from a love, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. So I want to dig into some of the experiences that we've had that are a hindrance to this process and how to overcome them. And I'd like to let Emma start with that. How's that?
Whoa, okay. I love the way you do that.
Bam, it's your turn.
Right, so did you want to start with the hindrances, or did you want to start from... Which aspect would you like me to start?
I want you to feel, what do you feel you should start with?
Okay. Well, I just love the way you described that process of falling in love as almost this journey of healing. And I see it as the journey of freedom. And I hadn't really factored love in as much as it essentially as it became at the beginning of this path. I just wanted to be free from depression and pain, and I wanted to I knew somewhere that there was more to life. I knew that there was more to human nature, and I wanted to find out how to access that, and I wanted to experience some part of myself. I wanted to access and experience some part of myself that I knew to be connected with a greater aspect of life, the planet, the stars, the universe. So I see the whole path of love as being very interconnected with the obstacles that you find on the way. Because it's almost through those hindrances that you access the love that's available. Mm-hmm. and it's like this dance, really. The way that life is structured is constantly to bring us to this reality, is to actually, the way life and circumstances are constructed in our experience is to constantly bring us back to ourselves, and ourselves is what we are, is love. So when you understand this, it's really the awareness of your own nature and the possibility of connecting to that love, which is the truth of your nature. So my work, I started out, I was a musician, and then I became an astrologer. And then I developed my own system of healing and of healing exchange that was based on soul connection. And that sort of evolved itself through the process of listening and observing. Because what happened was that in my astrological readings, I would see something was happening. And it was much bigger than me and the person there. Something was happening in that exchange. And it was almost the process of seeing and listening and other, and truly listening, almost allowed for that aspect of them to be revealed to me and to them. And from years of just these kind of sessions, I began to notice that what really wanted to make itself known to the person who was coming to see me was the soul. So it was almost, there was almost like an urgency about this. And the soul, actually what the soul is a signature of love. So every one of us, every single one of us has a soul, and that soul is a unique signature of love. And that is infinite. So, and connecting to that is the one thing that doesn't change. That doesn't change in a lifetime. It doesn't change in death. It doesn't change in birth. It actually, that signature is the one constant of who we are. And it goes beyond lifetimes. So actually having an awareness of that, having an experience of that is very empowering, because it's almost like your nature is restored to itself. And what it is divine. What it is an aspect of divinity. What it is an indestructible force of love. It's actually inviolable as well on that level. Yes. So I began to really make that the focus of the work, because what I noticed, I started getting really uncomfortable when initially when strange things happen in sessions. Because, and then, I mean, I had a really amazing mentor as well who helped me, because I couldn't stick to astrology at a certain point. And that was really when I stepped into working with energy and really seeing that it was about people being in a loving space that allowed the transformation to take place.
And can you share when you're, because I really want this to be clear for people that hear this, that are in pain, and when you're sharing about love, the difference in this romanticized love and this, um, the perception of love that's being this actually distorted, and what you're expressing as love, so that that's clear. So someone doesn't interpret it as, oh, we're talking about this same mushy gushy, sappy love that the fairy tale thing. So kind of clarify that when you're sharing, so that that makes sense to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very different from a lot of social labels of love, because actually what you often see as love in fiction or movies is kind of codependency and even control, actually. You know, like sometimes, you know, when you watch movies, you're thinking, and somebody says, I love you, and what they're saying is, I need you. And so love, yeah, it's and also what people have heard when people have told them that they love them, is not really, is often not what love is about. So yeah, I know that people can really flinch when they hear the word love, because it's we're actually at a point now where we really are retrieving love from this paradigm of control and codependency, where love is dressed up, or where actually codependency is dressed up as love. So we're really learning how to remove ourselves from these kind of relating dynamics. So for people who are in pain and they know that the interactions are not loving, yet they're consistently told that they are,
Mm-hmm.
it's really about trusting yourself in that, because if it doesn't feel respectful, if it isn't respectful, it is not love.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, that's a really good question, because it is, you know, what love is called, and you know, that it's used in so many different ways, and what it truly is. Love is also not just a passive state.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other misconception about it. You know, it's like, oh, I'm so loving because I just put up with what everybody does to me.
Yeah.
It's also, love is one of the things that I've learned most about love is self-respect, and being able to honor my own energetic boundaries.
Yeah.
That's a huge aspect of living from love. It's really such a central part of that, because love can only exist in equality.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was going to ask you about too. Like when we're living with, well, there's something that I wanted to share when I want to let you finish that, and then there's an experience I want to share, because I think that's where we go into the feeling of anger and pain, and then setting the boundaries with those that have hurt us.
Yeah.
But I didn't want you to go too much into the boundaries, because I want to go to that after I share.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really it's about connecting um, to the emotional aspect, as in, and the senses, and the physical as well, because the soul energy, the love of the life force, actually it works through all these bodies. So if something isn't right, if it doesn't feel right in that, it isn't love. I mean, you don't need to persuade someone that they're being loved. They know that. You know, it's like so there's a lot of different kinds of control and addiction that is dressed up as love. And really what love does, what actual self-love does. It allows you to be able to see the difference, and it allows you to be discerning in what you're choosing to interact with as well. So it's far from passive. It's a very active way of living, because if you're choosing to live your life with self-love guiding you, you will constantly be tested in a way to move you out of limitations that you formerly tolerated.
Mm-hmm.
And then you will also be faced with navigating a whole other sphere of experience that you won't have any kind of point of reference for. So the other thing is, you won't feel like you know what you're doing, because once you move into really trusting to live by love, it's very new territory. It's very new territory for us as a species, actually. And it's not what people often stay in a fear-based reality because they can control it.
Yeah.
Because they know where they are. It's like, oh, at least I know, I'm in a lot of pain, and I'm just putting up with this, but at least I know where I stand. And that familiarity is comfort, and that familiarity is belonging. So when you actually choose to step free from that, you can't control that. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. You can't control love.
Right.
You can't control it. It is because it's the universal force of creation. It cannot be controlled. And that's why nothing can touch love.
Mm.
So that's why the most empowering thing you can actually do is connect to that essence, connect to that loving essence. And just to say to people, if you are in a lot of pain, because you mentioned that, Patricia, and I've heard people ask me, how can I feel self-love? And I understand that, because when you're in a lot of pain, it feels just like such an unreachable or unrealistic kind of aspect. You just wouldn't know. And it's really to even if you're not feeling even if you're not feeling love, you know that there's a resonance in these words, mm-hmm. that your true nature is love, that there is great power in that, that connection is available to you. Even if you can't feel it now, you will.
Mm-hmm. Well, that gets back to the hindrances. And something that someone shared that had listened to our first conversation that we had back in 2017 had shared something that I'd like to just share briefly, and then I'd like to share an experience, and then let you, I think that would be really a good way for you to elaborate more on the hindrances, because I think I'm going to give you some scenarios that really will be beneficial to everyone listening.
Yeah.
But someone had listened and they said, would love to be able to feel things. I was punished terribly for having any emotions growing up, and it has gotten to the point that of me being physically, mentally, and emotionally paralyzed. And I could really relate to that so deeply because of the traumatic childhood that I had. And one of the things that when that I can remember feeling these things and asking myself what's wrong with me, but I wasn't exactly honest with myself, because I did feel things, but I didn't feel normal. That, like, I didn't feel what felt healthy, and I didn't feel that I could love the way that I thought love should be. I guess it's going to be the best way for me to explain this. So I'm going to share that this is where I'm going to allow myself to be vulnerable and share something that's really deeply personal. it can be a little embarrassing, but I am strong enough to do this because I feel like it will help both men and women uh, when we're trying to live in love. And it's not about putting up with someone hurting you. It's about looking at things that sometimes we identify with hurt, but it's not really attached to the person that we're sharing that experience with. It comes from something different. So it's something that has to be, we have to work on within ourselves, because we can't get it from this other person. And so when I share this, my husband, he knows that he is a guinea pig, that I'm going all out there, that I'm transparent, I'm putting everything out, and he's used to it. At first he was like, leave me out of it, but he knows he's not going to win that one. Because this is the moment to really empower both men and women, and to kind of bridge this gap where we can't really be feminine and be appreciated, and we can't be masculine and be appreciated for that. We're trying to be the opposite of what we are. So something that happened in my relationship early on with my husband was that I really had an issue with being vulnerable and intimate. I was really good at putting on a show, and I could perform, and I could do all the things that I was supposed to do to try to get the attention of a man. But when it came to being vulnerable and being and really giving myself to someone, that just wasn't something that I was capable of doing. Because I had so much hurt. I was always guarded. I was always in survivor mode, and I was never going to love someone more than they loved me, because then I lose. then there's pain in that. So I always had to be with a partner that if I was entering into a relationship, that I felt like they needed me or loved me more than I needed or loved them. So I was trying to build a life and fit into society and create these, this picturesque lifestyle that says everything's good and I've got a family and blah, blah, blah. And when I met my husband, I just had an instant connection with him. And even our connection wasn't the ideal scenario because of the things that I had going on in my life and the things that he had going on in his life, but it was just an instant connection. And I allowed myself to be vulnerable. I allowed myself to be hugged and lay in his lap and be tender and kissy. And that just wasn't me. That wasn't who I showed my love in different ways. So I would cook you a great meal. I'd clean your house. I'd pay for something nice for you, because that was the way that I could show you love without you getting inside of my heart and making it hurt. And so it was it hadn't been that long into our relationship. So this is really interesting that I can see where I was already doing work, and that this relationship was so critical in my growth and where I am today. And this will seem so trivial to some people, but when you're in a state of pain, it is not trivial. I mean, it's like a bomb going off. But we were intimate, and it was a sexual encounter, and I had truly given myself to him in a way that was just really open and loving and tender and gentle. And he had never experienced anything like that from a woman. And so it was affecting him. He was like, I never really looked at women as someone to respect until I met you, because he had such odd relationships himself. And I was just now opening myself up to him. And so we each are coming in with our own stuff. And so right after this beautiful, intimate moment, and I was feeling so loved and like, I have found this person that is just really going to complete me. And he's making me feel loved. Like, oh, I found someone that's really making me feel loved. And he gets up and he goes and he starts looking at a Playboy magazine. And he's reading an article. He's not looking at women, the typical thing, oh, I'm just in it for the articles. Well, obviously they're not just in it for the articles. But in that moment, it was just such a typical thing for him I don't think that moment meant the same thing to me that it meant to him. Mm-hmm. But when he did that, it was literally like someone had just stabbed me in the chest with a knife. I was hurt so much. I didn't even talk to him about it until 10 years later.
Wow.
Because I was too embarrassed to tell him how much that hurt me. but I was kind of like, I did these like things that were like, well, I don't really think that's appropriate to have in the house because I have children. Like, we really can't have that stuff. It really had nothing to do with the children. It was my own insecurities. Now, here's the thing about that situation. That was something that was just commonplace for him. He grew up around that. It was something that he had seen in his home. It was just part of, his guy relationships. It really meant nothing. And he had not had a relationship where he had to really go in and really think about someone else's feelings like that. And some people are going to go, wow, that is just really messed up. What a scumbag. How could you do that? And then other people are going to be like, hey, Patricia, get over it. It's just a magazine. But it's not, it has nothing to do with the magazine. It has nothing to do with the women in the magazine. It had nothing to do with him at all. It had to do with the rejection that went back to childhood, the times when you wanted to trust and be vulnerable. That triggered something in me to where I felt like I wasn't important anymore, and that it was all a lie. And but this is where we have to be responsible also for our own actions and think about how we entered into a relationship with someone. So when I came in, he would have no reason to think that I wouldn't be okay with that, because I didn't present myself as someone that would have that, because I acted like I had all this testosterone and I was the she woman because I was, independent and, just like really trying to show this tough exterior, and I was open to anything. So I think for me to say this will hurt my feelings, he'd be like, really? You're open to all these other things in life, and a magazine is what gets you, like, and there was such at that moment, and we continued to grow together. We've had this dynamic where we would be completely opposite people, but we have taught one another so much and have grown together in so many ways. And when I finally talked to him about that, he was like, really? Because it did alter, for all those years, it altered the way that I interacted with him. I didn't respect him, and the same way that I did originally. And I didn't want to allow him in again. So I punished him in a lot of ways. I was really harsh on him, really very critical, because I didn't want to look at how that had made me feel. And I didn't want to look at really what was going on inside of me. So he was actually as courageous to stay in the relationship as I was, because we were both coming from childhood wounds. He had his own things and I did mine. And so the reason I wanted to share this is because neither one of us intentionally were trying to hurt each other. And he wasn't coming from a place where he didn't love me, and I wasn't coming from a place to where I didn't love him. We just had this instant connection that no matter what, we could get through it together. We just had become life partners. But I was so confused. I took that action and I thought, now I'm not loved. And for 10 years of the marriage, there was this lost intimacy. And so the reason, and Emma knows this, when we did our first session together in 2014, she was like, well, what part of your incarnation here is to remember how to be intimate and vulnerable. And that's what I talk about. That's why I say soul recognition, because it was like somebody was taking, just like looking inside of me. And I'm like, no, I didn't want anyone to know that. And so that was the beginning of me really wanting to become transparent and share with others. And so I wanted to give this example to show that the male and the female side of it, and then the distortion, and let you share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, wow, there's so much in that. It's just, oh, wow, you are something else. Okay, right. I just start with what I loved about that story was actually, it was the intimacy. It was you opening up in a way you never had done before to him in love, that triggered that whole healing process, that even if it took a very long time, because if you didn't even communicate to him for 10 years about it, but nevertheless, it was that. It was the fact that you trusted him enough to show him that side of you, and took the risk of being hurt, which you were, and then whatever that instigated, the process of healing that you're now benefiting from. So what I'm saying is, like, vulnerability, that is why people do everything they can to avoid vulnerability. This is just amazing, everybody. That if you could even see the whole global state of affairs as being a whole bunch of people who would do anything to avoid feeling, but mainly to avoid feeling vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, and I get it, because I don't enjoy feeling vulnerable myself. And I get it, that how it feels. And I'm used to this. And I still feel like just lost in that state. But I have enough experience and trust to go with it. Because I ultimately know that our vulnerability is our truth. Our vulnerability is what allows another to know they can trust us, even if they're actually not ready for that, even if they're not ready to be trusted either, because that's like another thing. So, you know, our vulnerability, and the irony is our vulnerability is our greatest strength. So what's going on here, what you were talking about as well, which is another huge part of our human reorientation at this time, is not having this artificial identity that we have as an overlay over who we really are. Who we really are is vulnerable. That is who we are. We're designed to be vulnerable because our vulnerability is what connects us to the feelings that tell us whether something is right or wrong. You know, our vulnerability is our connection to our own feeling nature, which so though we can feel exposed in that state, is actually what allows us to show up, ironically. Because what always happens is that with this identity, what you were talking about when you said your husband, he didn't think you would mind because what you had shown him was this identity of someone that wouldn't care about that, whereas the person underneath did care about that. I think most of us have gone through this process of wanting to be a certain person that we're not, and investing ourselves into that identity. If you take that to an extreme, that's actually insanity. Because what you do is that you totally identify with that. So this process of actually connecting to who you really are, being honest about what you feel, being honest about your being vulnerable, being able to know what you're feeling, being able to communicate that. These are the things that we are learning now to be human, you know, to be free of an artificial structure that's not benefiting anybody. Actually, at the end of the day, who's it benefiting? I mean, you know, okay, we need some form of social identity so we can interact with the work. Maybe if we're going to work every day, we've got that. But we actually know the difference between that and who we really are. And if we're lucky, those things are totally in alignment. So I mean, for myself, it was a long journey, and I'm still working on this. Yeah, a long journey of reclaiming who I actually am and bringing that into the world, instead of thinking that's who I want to be, that's who I should be, and sort of investing my energy into an artificial structure that simply cannot be maintained. It cannot be maintained because it's got nothing to do with your soul.
Mm-hmm.
It's got everything to do with a psychological idea
Mm-hmm.
of what you think it means to succeed socially.
Mm-hmm.
And so this discrepancy between this identity and who you really are, I think that's what causes a lot of suffering. It certainly causes a lot of exhaustion, and it causes a lot of illness, because it's exhausting having to be someone that you're not.
It's torturous, and
it's awful. It's like you're having to perform 24/7. It's like you have such little respect for actually, or fear of who you might be being exposed, that you'll just do anything to keep this charade in play, and it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it is. I said it's torturous because there was times, and he was like, what happened? You used to hold my hand, you used to rub my head, you used to do this, you used to do that, because I wasn't a touchy feely person, and after that I stopped being that. And so I couldn't drop the facade, because then I had to acknowledge my vulnerability.
yeah.
So instead I made it about him. Oh, everything was, well, you don't do this anymore, and you don't do that. And well,
Yeah.
if you just did this, or if you just did that, then maybe I would be able to do this for you. And so it was just this game that was being played, but it wasn't being played with the intent of harming, but it was, because it was all these years that there could have been a more intimate, vulnerable relationship that was missed. It's there now, but for all those years it was like each of us dodging what we were feeling. He couldn't really go in and ask me what was going on with me. He just wanted to know why I wasn't rubbing his head. I mean, just rub my head and everything's okay.
I mean, it takes a huge amount of courage to be able to. It's one thing to be able to feel and connect to vulnerability,
mm-hmm.
and it's another thing to be able to communicate to someone you love,
mm-hmm.
knowing that they may, perhaps that information is going to change the relationship. Mm-hmm. Perhaps that information is going to change what they think about you. Mm-hmm. Perhaps, you don't know that we don't know what the consequences of communicating vulnerability are. That's why it's scary. Mm-hmm. Because communicating that vulnerability, you don't know how the other person's going to respond. And that's your truth. Mm-hmm. That's your heart that is actually being revealed.
Yeah.
So there's a huge amount of courage involved in that. And I think this is where trust comes into and intimacy. These are all the things we're learning. We're learning. You had to know you could trust him, and he had to know that he could trust you to be intimate, to mm-hmm. be vulnerable. And that took years. That takes years. That took me years with myself, let alone, it's still something I have to bring my awareness back to. Yeah. It's okay to feel vulnerable in this situation. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay not to have to pretend that you do. It's okay to feel inadequate for the role. Everything that we actually do feel. And on the other side of that, even being, the honesty is a huge part of this as well, like you said, about being honest with yourself. And that's a real, that's a huge part of being able to live by love, because as we were saying yesterday, it's not just about being honest about your vulnerability. It's being honest about your power. Mm-hmm. It's being honest about what it means that you can be vulnerable, because you're just going to have to feel this, people, but feel the power in you being vulnerable in the world. you know, being able to, what if you didn't have to leave your front door in the morning with a whole heap of masks and you know, paraphernalia and communications that really had nothing truly to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
And how would it feel if you could just be yourself? How would it feel if you could just be yourself in the world every day? How would it feel if people hated you just for being who you are, but it was still worth being who you are? How about if just being who you are gave other people the opportunity to relate to you because they could see you? You know, that's the other thing. It's like people are going to want immediately to connect with you, the person that they see, the person that you reveal yourself to be, who you are. So it immediately makes for genuine connection with others. So, and the other thing is, it's energetically self-sustaining. So you're not having to use all your energy to perform. I mean, I still know some people who live like this, and they are so exhausted. I mean, they're just like, they come home at the end of the day and they're just like,
yeah.
Because honestly, keeping that up is so much hard work.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, even just being able to be yourself, I think that in itself is an art form, and particularly in relating, where, you know, the more vulnerable we get in a relationship, the more we want the other person to maybe be impressed by us, but, you know, so you know, we have more of a tendency to package ourselves in what we might see as more attractive.
Yeah.
But actually, if you think about it on an objective level, what is most attractive is actually often someone's vulnerability. And I can say this to you men, because I know men have such a problem with this. But it is hugely attractive for a woman, for a man to actually admit that he feels vulnerable. It isn't it, Patricia?
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, that was a big, you know, a big turning point in our relationship. When I actually talked to him, he's like, first of all, nobody's ever talked to me like this, especially no woman. And then, you know, he had to open up at that point and share his vulnerabilities. And, you know, he let me know that what his fears were and what his insecurities are. And I mean, it took us to the next level. And when you're vulnerable, it does feel like even sharing this here, this is what vulnerability is. This is what, you know, allowing others to listen and see you and very well go off and judge you looks like. But the thing about it is I can't live in lies anymore. I can't live with the masks. I can't live not being seen. And I don't want relationships around me that are so superficial that I have to feel like I have to be someone that I'm not. And at the same time, I want to be able to live in a place of love, and living in that place of love doesn't mean that I just open my door for everybody that wants to come in and feed off of me. That's not what that means.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's you know, there isn't well, there's starting to be. I was going to say there isn't a manual on this, but people are writing about it. But I mean, one of the reasons why there can't be a whole heap of blanket truths about this is because it's for us to live our true selves can only be known really by us, because we gauge that by how it feels. And really, deeply, nobody else has your soul, or your soul signature, your incarnational contract, you name it. So it really is down to you to know, and you gauge that from being able to feel. I mean, that's the other thing. This is a journey to reconnect, a journey of connection, a journey of, you know, the path of love is a journey of reconnection, connection to our emotions, so that we can actually feel when something doesn't feel right. Because before, what we do is we disconnect, so we don't have the inconvenience of feeling vulnerable, feeling uncomfortable, feeling that it's not right. So we're kind of shutting off our intuition for the sake of convenience, so that we can get the job done, so that we don't put up a fuss, so that, you know, there's this whole thing about efficiency around this too.
Yeah.
You know? So, and I get that too, because, you know, the way work is often structured is like that. So, you know, being able to balance these two aspects of life, you know, really committing to that journey of connection, which, like, you know, you say is it's the benefit. Okay, you feel exposed. Yeah, both of us do. We're sitting here now, sure, but we have access to. We also are excited and energized by this. At the end of this call, you and I are going to feel great, and so are the people listening to it, okay? We're not going to come off this call and be like, oh, you know, in some kind of heat. And that is actually what I think is respecting your own life. You know, this is precious. This life you have been given, it's not that easy to incarnate. I know it's painful, and it is, but the point is, when you first start to connect, yes, you're feeling a lot of pain, because guess what, pain doesn't go anywhere, and there's a backlog usually in my work. I don't know about you, but when people are used to disconnecting or are disconnected, they actually have a backlog of unfelt feelings, is the point. The way that we're designed, and we're beautifully designed emotionally, physically, energetically, we're exquisitely designed. So the way we're designed is when we have a feel, just like children, we feel it. So we're designed more like children, you know, as in, you know, if we emotionally. So if we feel something, we just like feel it to the extent that to which we actually do. And that is how the emotion is transformed. It's how it's released from the physical body, from the physical and energetic body. So the emotional body is constantly in flux, because it's constantly being exposed to new feelings, and we're just feeling our way through life like this. And so when you're disconnected, when you start to that's why it's so overwhelming when you start to reconnect. And that's okay for any of you who are at that point. You just need to be really kind to yourself. Okay, and this is where you start with self-love. Because instead of thinking, why aren't I feeling self-love? Why aren't I feeling love at all? Why am I not feeling? Okay, because you're used to, you know, for years probably avoiding it, numbing it, whatever you do to avoid it. So the beginning, you can have a kind of backlog of feelings. So it's just a process of being really kind to yourself, and just being able to listen to those feelings without any kind of judgment, to let yourself be exactly as you are. And that's self-love. That is love. Love is not expecting something to be different from what it is. That's control. So when it comes to love, we start with ourselves. It's like, right, love is, if you don't have to feel blissed out or feel like, you know, whatever you think love should feel. You start just by giving yourself a break, which is the first loving thing you can do for yourself. You know, it's like, you'll possibly be feeling things. What I find with a lot of people who haven't grieved properly, that they've got this backlog of grief sometimes. It's not going to go anywhere. No, it's going to come out. Sometimes you're going to need to cry. Sometimes you need to cry. Let yourself cry. Let yourself feel how you feel without any judgment around this. You need to find the space to make the time to feel. It doesn't need to be often more than 5 or 10 minutes if you're a really busy person.
And even if you're a very masculine man, the going back to what I started with originally, when this person had shared that they were not able to feel things because they were punished terribly for having emotions growing up. I know what that's like. You cry, you get punished. You don't cry, you get punished. You're happy, you get punished. You're mad, you get whatever is happening. So you get so confused within that this goes back to the connection that you were talking about, because I feel like at that moment we do disconnect from our body.
Yeah.
Because we're feeling all this inside. And
that's a really interesting point, because basically that's a survival mechanism, and disconnection is survival. Okay, because and most people learn that in childhood, because we're still in this culture where feelings are wrong, crying's wrong, screaming's wrong, all this kind of thing, whereas actually there's a reason why a being is acting in any way that it is. So, but anyway, the point is, part of what we're doing is, as adults, is releasing survival mechanisms, releasing energetic and psychological survival mechanisms. And actually, those are really interesting, because they're not just, there's all different ways people are really, that their energy a lot of the time isn't even in their body.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
I know for myself, it wasn't. I don't think my energy was, I didn't really get it into my body till my 30s, to be honest. And actually I was very ill in my 20s. And I think on some evolutionary level, that was because I wasn't in my body, and my body was just demanding my attention. And as soon as I got my energy into my body, my health just blossomed. It was just like that, so but I think that's a really good point, that the start of dismantling those survival mechanisms is creating safety for yourself. And I know that's a big part of my work, and yours too, but it's something you can do for yourself, and you need to be living in a place where it's safe to feel. Okay, so creating safety to yourself. And if you're not in an environment, and I'm not talking about work, but if you aren't in a living somewhere where it's safe to feel, you really need to ask yourself why. So I think that's a really good place to start, really. It's like, right, because that is the beginning of you reconnecting. Being safe, feeling safe. You can all feel the difference right away, everyone who's listening, when it's just to say to yourself it's safe to feel, and feel how your body responds to that. It's just instant, like relaxation, because also the body needs to be safe to be able to heal, and the heart needs to be safe as well to be able to emotionally heal. So part of the thing, if you think about our culture, is that people are disconnected, and also very, very they're using stress because they don't have access to that life force that's just natural when you're connected. So they're using artificial energy through stress, essentially, and adrenaline. Those are kind of artificial energies to keep you going. And what it does, it keeps you going in survival, because survival's about adrenaline. So it's just like you're just basically surviving. So your body can't actually process properly if it thinks it's surviving, because it doesn't have, it's just busy being alert. So it needs actual safety. It needs safety. And that's what you need. Safety is what you need to be able to connect to your feelings, to be able to start to experience your vulnerability, to start to experience your power, to start to feel the love that's actually at the core, that is the essence of you, to start to really have a tangible experience of that, which you will if you are in a safe space. And I think that creating safety, which has nothing to do with the comfort zone and all that, because actually being safe, you can take that anywhere with you. You know, you can do a lot more when you're in a place of safety. In some, you know, you could go to a war zone, but you would like be able to create that safety somehow for yourself. So it's like, I think those kind of questions are, you know, how can I create a safe space for myself? How can I create, does my environment support that? Can I relax where I'm living, you know? And if not, why? You know, those are the little things that can really start you to reorientate your life in a way that it's going to start supporting you and those around you. Because actually the point of caring and loving for yourself, to the extent to which you can blossom in this lifetime, is what allows you to give so much more. Because firstly, you have access to so much more energy, and secondly, that is love, equality. You are taking care of you, and then you can extend that to those around you, and there's a equality within that. That is love. It's not just giving out. That's not love. There's a sort of kind of like Christian, or, you know, a religious concept of love, I think, that it's just about just giving. And actually it's true that you know, there is an infinite source of love within you. That's the other thing that people get confused about love. They think they have a certain amount to give, so they go, oh, I can't love you if I love you. And you know, I'm not talking about romance here, because, you know, commitment's very important. Actually, commitment is really important for love too. I mean as in the amount of people that you can love is infinite, because you have an infinite amount of love to give. But that's nothing. There's that is just a natural way of you interacting with the world. So there's nothing about you being depleted in that exchange. And this is why energetic and emotional connection and awareness is so central to this. Because also, you know, if you're just the one giving and giving, you will actually start feeling resentful. And that is going to start to have an impact on your relationships. It's also not love. Your kind of sacrifice is not love, because love is you taking responsibility for your well-being in life, in all of your relationships, in your work. So it you know, the path is like, and it's constantly changing as well. So once you think you've got it down, it's going to change, you know. And that's the beauty of it. It's life is change. And it's like it's just constantly evolving and blooming from within, and constantly moving you in a new direction. And it will never be something that you you won't feel like you know how to do. And if you do, I don't think that's right. I think when it's right, it's like just the feeling of excitement and freedom, but really not knowing what's around the corner. And I think that's very much the energy of 2018, actually, because I know that a lot of people were listening as well, had done a lot of work. And I really acknowledge this, because I think this is the time where you're going to start seeing some actual worldly benefits for doing this. But I really acknowledge it, because I do understand the courage of going there.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were saying yesterday, not just with the emotional processing, which requires great courage to be able to face the darkest side of yourself. You know, to be able to face the darkest side of yourself without judgment. Whoa, that's masterful, actually. And we're all capable of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, to be able to embrace the lightest part, to embrace the most powerful aspect of you that is capable of creating the life,
Mm-hmm.
of let's just say moving into the life, or surrendering into that life.
Mm-hmm.
that is truly representative of your soul. That's often something to do with a choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's often to do with courage. That's often to do with taking a chance. It's often to do with faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so funny, because I always love when I'm having a discussion and I've got my questions that I've, for reminders, and I am ready to ask my question, and you just roll right into it. And so I'm like, okay, well,
what were you going to ask?
Well, because when we were talking about, being able to feel and be vulnerable, and you started talking about how much it would hurt at first, because it would be difficult to feel. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I think you kind of you didn't kind of, you went into it, is, about our bodies and our feelings. So one of the things that was so important to me that I had to do was start to ask my body how it feels, and what it wants, and also my feelings. What do I want to feel? And so one of the questions that I was gonna talk about was, what is stopping you from living in love and knowing your own inner wisdom? And we were talking about connection. So I feel like when we're asking what is stopping us from living and knowing our inner wisdom, it is that loss of connection. So that's really what you were going into, about connecting with your body, connecting with your emotions, and allowing yourself to feel. You have to give yourself permission.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, by the way. And I think as I said, you are going into an unknown path when you make that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's uniquely yours.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people stay the way they are because they want to fit in. I actually found this out for myself, because I was thinking, what is really blocking me taking that next step? And it was, when I was doing a lot of walking in the land, and I came to the realization that it was also to do with belonging, and that I felt that in my empowerment, I didn't want to be seen to be, I didn't want to stand out in my empowerment. I wanted to be small so I could blend in, and I felt it would support people more. I thought there was more service in that smallness. I thought there was more community in that. And then I realized it wasn't true. That what you're just energizing a full state of being and a full sense of community, and that's, but I had nothing to prove that. And it is something. It is something to be exposed. It is something to be self-loving and happy with yourself and feeling good about yourself. You do start to stand out. People do notice you, but also they understand just from you being like that. I mean, that's the beauty of this, is you've probably experienced that when you take that step, for as many people that have got a problem with it, because it does trigger people. And I think we have to get used to that. We have to allow people their reactions. I mean, you and I both, I mean, I've experienced a lot of very intense reactions since I started this work, as you know. I mean, and I still get them, you know, I still get surreal. That really knocked me for six, and I still get really upset and I cry. And it really, really hurts everybody. Yeah. But, you know, at the same time, I get to see some people they can access that within themselves from being in your company, just like I did when I was in the company of those people before I had made that choice. And it's more about, if you really want to be in service, like actually accepting your own power, or agreeing to thrive, even when you know that's a possibility and you can take that step. Just the energetic template of that and that choice, that has more impact on the people you come into contact with than anything you could say or teach them. Seriously, people. And I think that helped me a lot, because it wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about it. It was actually what really was going to make a difference. What really, you know, a lot of the time over the years, I really did, like all these themes came from me really researching, well, what is going to bring about global change, or what is going to restore us to this loving truth, or the divine experience that is available to us, or what is going to all these questions that over the years that I kept asking, and it really came down to the simplicity of that, because we are in an energetic construct. So it's more about, ultimately, it's more about who you are. Mm-hmm. Because energetically you're a universe, right? Energetically, your soul is the scale of a universe, even though it's connected to a physical expression. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, how you are, the quality of that, the choices that you make in the most personal parts of your experience, it has a global impact. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed it myself even the last year, just with people that have really struck me, seeing them in action. It's not actually what they say, it is who they are. It's who they are, and how they are is what I learn from. Mm-hmm. And it's like an energetics exchange. You immediately know what they stand for, what their connection is, and have a sense of what they love.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, as we're on that subject.
Yeah.
So that's another really interesting part of this particular path of living from love as it relates to service.
Yeah.
Is that actually it really comes back to self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And actually that's something I have to constantly bring myself back to, because, you know, we just get, you know, caught up in I mean, we're living in a society that doesn't reflect that. We're having to generate that. It requires a certain amount of will for me to remember to live like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm lucky to be in this job, to have this as work. But I have to, you know, bring myself to that, because, you know, the culture's like totally goal orientated. It's about action. It's about how you get what you want, you know, Western society. And whereas living by love, it's like listening.
Mm-hmm.
It's listening to you, to other, listening to your body,
Mm-hmm.
knowing when to take action, knowing when to not take action, knowing when to communicate, listening to know when to act and in what way, listening to know when to communicate. And, you know, sometimes there's nothing to do, which is very difficult for people that have to be busy, because that's how they feel worthy in a culture that rewards that.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting time, because I just want to say to all of you that you can thrive socially by also respecting yourself and your body and your physique and your energy and your health and your heart. You can actually succeed like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can make money. You can be successful. So and society needs us to hold this ground, so that others can shift, because they as many of you can see, they're beginning to listen, because it's getting very hard to stick with a kind of physical, just a kind of physical, functional perspective of life. It's getting harder, and people are beginning to wake up to this reality as more people are. So there's this wave of consciousness that, and there's an openness to it that I've never come across before. And I know it's also personal to my own life path. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of us have been really underground, really solitary.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that things are opening out. And I think all of us, we actually need to take stock of the fact that it's changed, because many of us are leaders.
Yeah.
And the leaders, they need that level of sensitivity. We need leaders that are connected. We need, you know, so that's you, people who are listening. This is like a call to arms or something. I'm just telling you to familiarize yourself with your power as well.
Yeah.
Because it's okay also to be successful. It is okay to be. That's another thing about standing out. Because what this connection gives you is a phenomenal access to intelligence you never had. Because believe me, emotional intelligence blows out the intellect 1,000-fold. I mean, forget that. Once you know, like, emotional intelligence is how you understand the universe, people. Not that it can be understood, but that connection, the connection is to you. Mm-hmm. is you know, you can't get that through the mind. You can't get that through research.
No, that's really good, because as you know, one of the things that I was thinking is, I'm like, you know, to get out of this, I can't feel. And we say, well, ask your body, let your feeling, ask, let your feelings tell you what they want. And for me, it's like, go away from like the thoughts of the pain that someone else caused you, the revenge and the anger and the hatred that can be overruling your life and stopping you from facing yourself. Like, this is inner work. This is not about the people that created the pain in your life, because they're not always going to be there for you to communicate with and to go through this with you. It's always going to have to come back to, what do I want for my life? And we're here to experience this transformation, the evolution that our souls wanted to experience and coming into this universe. And so now we're at this time in 2018. Well, for me, when you're saying, you can be successful, and I've been looking at this myself and going, what is it that I want to do with how do I want to contribute for myself and for humanity? I don't want to live saying I'm doing this for humanity and then not acknowledge that I'm doing it for myself. It has to be a mutual thing. So it has to be, it has to come from both, or there is an imbalance. But creativity. So when we start to connect to our body, to our feelings, and we start to live in love for ourselves, then, that opens up that emotional connection and that emotional intelligence and that creativity. Because I lost creativity for a long time. I was very much a writer in my youth. And then just, I lost it. And I had other areas that I could create in, but overall I was like, what happened to all this creativity I had? And so this is what, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, is I want to create what I want. I don't want to live in the past of what all happened. I want to get through those feelings, move through that pain, and create the life that I want now.
Yeah. And I think that actually creating the life, I don't think that's a linear process. I think it's like, my experience is that those things are happening simultaneously. So I'm saying this because a lot of people are waiting till they're healed, till they do that. And I just want to say to you all, you don't have to be perfect till you, because that can also be a sneaky way of procrastinating or feeling like that you're not good enough. Or the point is that these streams of creativity and emotional processing and healing are often coexisting. And so, okay, you'll have one day where you're in a real deep process, the next these days things move through really fast because of the energy we're in, right? So you can feel really a deep level of pain, and then a few hours later you'll just have moved through something, and you'll be in a maybe a very inspired place. So and it's like that where it feels really natural to be creative, or it feels really natural. I think that the point is that really honoring the way that our experience is designed. So it is constantly in flux. It doesn't, to let go of what we think it should look like for us to earn our own respect. If we give our own respect to ourselves as we are right now, so we don't need things to look or be a certain way for us to love ourselves, or to like ourselves, or to respect ourselves, or to earn our self-worth. We are worthy by being alive. We are everything that you've done to get you to this point, to be listening to this show right now. Take stock of that. Okay, truly take stock of that if you want some proof of your right to be here. Okay, because you can give yourself that. Acknowledgement is also giving love to yourself. That's not like needing other people's attention, right? That's what we're letting go of. That's not love. Okay, it's like What we're letting go of is behaving in a way that demands people give us their attention because we're not able to provide or acknowledge ourselves. Once we start from a place of providing that acknowledgement and love for ourselves, that completely changes the motive of our relating. That means that I don't need you to give me attention. I'm here to share. I'm here to share my love and appreciation from a place of my own self-respect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
So, you know, at this point, it's as I was always saying, the healing, we don't have to wait to be perfect, because we are perfect in the mess. If you're going through hell right now, this is as sacred as when you're firing on some ecstatic, blissed out cloud of all-knowingness. So that's another thing was a big learning for me is not to, neither of those are the sort of ends of the spectrum of our human experience. And that's how that's how we balance ourselves out energetically. So, you know, when you're what is negative is when you're judging. Okay, that's what creates a negative kind of vibration, or, you know, that is when you're judging the pain that you're going through, or you know, or the feelings, because it's not easy to feel jealousy, for example, or hatred, or despair without judgment, because we kind of automatically think we're doing something wrong to feel that. We've got some really distorted idea of karma relating to our emotional state, right? It's just like, it's not God punishing you by making you feel shit. No, it's just it's actually something releasing. It's releasing from your past, it's releasing from your body, it's releasing from your heart. Respect that process, honor that process. That is sacred. And, you know, with that comes, like, also respect. When you do feel joy, have the courage to acknowledge the brilliance in you. As you're saying, in a connected state, you're brilliant. In a connected state, there is no limit to what you can create. It's really amazing. It's just like the love that you feel. There's an infinite source of love flowing through you, because you know, that is the signature of creation itself is love. Love is what defined form on this planet. Love is how form could take shape. So this is it's an infinite supply flowing through your soul. So if you're connected to that, you have an infinite supply of love, and an infinite supply of creativity. So this also just shifts that concept of an idea that everything is finite. It energetically it isn't, even though our bodies will we will die, but nevertheless that won't impact our soul energy. I've actually been present at quite a few of these transitions. The soul is not impacted by that. If anything, it obviously, you know, it kind of gains sort of momentum at those transition times, a bit like birth, where you're really, really aware of the soul of somebody at birth. It's like, whoa. And likewise at death, when they're coming into the incarnational states. But it's it's the particular vibration of love that has drawn that soul into incarnation. And it's, in fact, it is about creativity as well. So it's through the uniqueness of your energetic signature and how that impacts the planet, and how that interacts with others in the most subtle ways that you may never know until you do actually die, when you'll become aware of it all. And actually you can I mean, the other thing about all of this is that, just to say that this living by love, there's no choice about this. You've already agreed to it. So it's like, you can enjoy all of this now, or wait till the very, very end of your life, where you're going to go through it all. You're going to go through it all at the point, at the end of your life, because the end of our life is all about us having to go through everything emotionally that we've experienced in this lifetime. And anyway, there's a process of that takes place that relates to the emotions and an energetic and soul review of that. And we can actually just do that as we go along, to take the pressure off the end of our life. That really, really helps. I think, it does. Because the point is that death is where we face ourselves. And if we're doing that, if we're just actually doing that while we're alive, it really makes a difference to those transitions as well. Because we're already very familiar with death. We're already familiar with the nature of life, our own connection, that we're supported in love. So just doing that as in life, especially when you're young, it does make a difference to our passing, which we don't have any say over that. I mean, that's that's decided before our birth. But anyway, for some reason, I'm talking about that. But
well, no, but so you're saying like it was already predetermined at the specific point when we were transitioned.
We've already decided that. I think what I.
I know that too. I know that because when you were sharing that, that was one of the things that came, it has come into my awareness, is with everything that I've been allowing myself to feel and go through now, it's been made very clear to me that I've made this, the next part of my life, smoother.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It is freedom. It is freedom. And the beauty of connecting to that love that you are is that it will even frees you from the fear of death, because then there's nothing to fear. And because life is stronger than death. I mean, love is stronger than death. I mean, I've experienced that quite a lot in my sessions, as you know, from especially parents or people or loved ones that have crossed over. And that's always the message, that their love is so strong that death can't stop that crossing the threshold.
Yeah.
And that's really showed me so much about love. That the power of it.
Yeah.
Whew, so
thank you so much, Emma. And would you like to open it up now to let people ask
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I just want to share this, and if you've got something that you would like to share, you can go ahead and start raising your hands, and or if you have a question you want to ask, this is definitely open for participation, and we would love it. But one of the things that I've asked myself is, what is it that I love about myself? Because that's one of the things, like when we start feeling into our bodies and hearing what our bodies is telling us that it wants from us, what it needs from us. I don't even have to decide what I'm going to eat anymore. I already know because my body's already telling me what it wants. And when a feeling comes up, um, that like if something would to normally trigger, like I don't get triggered a lot because I've done so much healing, but then there's still things that will come up. And one of the things that comes up, if someone says to me, get over it, that's a trigger. If you tell me to get over it, I'm going to be going into like warrior mode. Like, don't tell me to get over it because I'm going to feel this. You don't get to tell me to get over it.
Yeah.
But, so living in love, there's so much that allows you to be a warrior, but be gentle and
Yeah,
with
that's so
grace,
beautiful.
and live with grace. And so I ask myself, what is it that I love about myself? And it's not in a egotistical way. It's just like really looking and acknowledging things. And if you really start to look at little things, just little things. And one of the things that I do love about myself is I know that I have a lot of courage, and I have seen that courage used in so many good ways. And also that persistence that I've had to get to the truth of life and to keep digging and looking inside of myself, no matter how scary and painful it was and has been. It's allowed me freedom. And I love myself for not staying in fear and running away from it. So that's just, to me, that's such a wonderful gift of love I've given to myself to stay in that committed process.
Yeah, Patricia, I love you for that too. I mean, and just to say the fact that you could take that as far as you did, that to me is, just that you could take love, and because it does take a lot of courage actually to take that love in and to make that choice, because it makes huge changes to our lives, as you know. I mean, it does change love. The point is, when you choose to live by love, it does really change your life. Often it changes your relationships. It can change all of it can change your work. It can change your life is going to be really different if you really commit to that. And so yeah, I really I love that about you.
Thank you. So Christine has raised her hand. I think she did. Okay. I have to find the raised hand. Christine, do you have your hand? Didn't you have your hand raised? 1 minute. 2 participants raised. Here we go. Okay, here we go. I am going to promote you to panelist, and now you can turn. Hey, yeah, there we go. Move this little thing. Okay, Christine, you can share now.
Oh, hey.
Hey.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, and so you can hear me, obviously, that's good.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I have never heard you before, and I've never read anything about you, Emma, and so this was just, I thought, I'm just going to show up and see what's happening here. And I just have to say that I love your energy, and this conversation has been, if I could describe it in one word, it would be beautiful. It has been a really beautiful conversation, and one that, I hope a lot of people will tune into it, and I really hope that people will share this conversation because it's really needed on the planet. This is, I think you're so tapped in and tuned in, and I caught little bits of what, I'm not sure what you do for a living, but something to do with coaching and working with people who've lost loved ones or something, or?
Well, I do energy work, so it covers the whole spectrum of human experience in my sessions, and I run retreats as well.
Right. So when you do energy work, are you doing energy work largely with people who have family members that have died, or?
No, I mean, that was a big theme over the last few years, but I actually I don't have a specific group that I work with. So, I mean, that's also what I love, is that I get people from all backgrounds going through all sorts of things. And so, I mean, actually, if I'd say anything, my work has mainly focused on emotional abuse. Actually.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that gives me an idea of how you're hooked up, how you're connected, and how this energy all comes in. So that's beautiful. And so that's what I meant when I said you're tapped in, and the conversation itself right now, I find, is right where a lot of people are, because and you mentioned it throughout, so just let me like grab some pieces of what I heard and try to formulate what I'm saying. Okay. So I heard, and what resonated with me most about this is that people are in a place right now. You didn't use this word, but it's a word that I use a lot because it's something that I've acknowledged and I've seen, and I do some writing about once in a while, but we have, as a humanity, as a collective, in my opinion, reached a place of willingness that we've never been at before. So if you think about the levels, like David Hawking's work, the levels of consciousness and how we move through the levels, we're in this place of willingness, which is like taking the anger and when we start to wake up and realize that we've been duped and the world is not what we thought it was, and we're recognizing all the different ways we've been manipulated and so on. And people at first can get depressed and angry and looking at, my life is a sham, everything is a lie. Yesterday I got a bio from somebody, and they've gone through all these changes and looked and reshaped and reformed and dropped a lot of masks, and they felt like their whole life has been a lie, but it wasn't intentional. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, we weren't intentionally lying, or we weren't intentionally moving through life this way. We were actually manipulated and duped. So, but we were in the fog of it. We were what you were describing as disconnected and cut off from our own feelings, and trying to do what we're supposed to do and play the roles we're supposed to play and not complain about it, because that wouldn't be successful. How can you complain about the way the system is set up and still be considered a success within it? It just doesn't work. So what stuck out for me is that you're right in tune and tapped into how people are in this place of, like, they recognize what's gone on, they recognize how they've been participating or how they've been manipulated. They have started to feel those feelings of, this isn't what I came here for. This isn't what I signed up for. There's got to be more than paying bills and paying taxes and going to work every day in a job that is just a lie or a sham and isn't my true purpose, maybe. And so people are starting to say, what is my true purpose? What do I want to do? How do I change this energy about myself? How do I tell my parents I really don't care about my career and I was doing it for them? I was doing it to pay the bills. I was doing it to impress people that actually don't even really know what I go through on a daily basis, and I don't speak to every single week, but yet I'm doing these roles because it's expected of me. So we've gotten to that place where there's a lot of anger there. There's a lot of frustration there. There's a lot of, what now? What do? I have a house, a car, payments, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's got all this pressure on me. And I am not performing at my optimal best. I'm not living into my soul purpose. I don't feel connected to my own self. I can't even, I'm running around distracted and numbing out, which was another thing when you were saying people are sort of distracted. We're filling it up with shopping and booze or sex or drama or fiddly diddly phone things and scrolling and all of this distraction, because we don't want to feel miserable because of what we've built our lives around being a sham and taking, like you said, it takes a lot of energy to hold that up. It takes a lot of energy to like continue that cycle. And so this is what I love. This brings me to where I want to get. The point about, what do people do now? And they have to step in to the willingness. They have to step into that. I'm willing to look at myself. I'm willing to have courage. I'm willing to really ask myself the questions, do I like this? Do I not like that? Am I going to continue this for that person, or am I going to try something for me? Am I going to bow to my own soul, or am I going to bend to fear? And this is where the place is right now, which is why I think this conversation is so important and should be shared, because I feel that's where a lot of people really are hovering about and thinking, how do I quit my job? How do I do something more in alignment? What is a career that I could do? What do I even like? What lights me up, right? This is that place of like, this is no longer acceptable, but I don't know what's next. I don't know how to shift that. I don't know where, I get the energy even to make some of these small movements. And so, I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think that this was a really beautiful conversation, and that's where people are. And I'm not going to provide any answers whatsoever to that. But I did go through all, like, a lot of that. And it'll always be a process of, and a lot of what Patricia said too about the relationship work, that can kind of come after. Because Emma, you said you have to get in a place where you feel supported enough to be even able to, and so I have two sides to that. Yes, it was like that for me, right? Where, and actually I've had many reincarnations within this carnation, deaths and rebirths.
Oh yeah, haven't we all?
Yeah. So I did have what you described where I had to get in a place, and this was the most important one. This was probably the trigger of an avalanche of several deaths and rebirths, but the most important one for me, because I was so disconnected, because for years, like Patricia, I was running around disconnected and surviving and not really feeling myself, not in relationships come and go, and you're just sort of managing them, but not really being true to you and so on. So I totally understand what Patricia, you were saying as well, but I came to a place where I actually, things broke down in my life. I lost my job. There's a couple of betrayal situations, whatever, and that were really eye-opening for me and made me sit still, made me, like, I couldn't make a move. I was like, and I called it a confidence crisis. It really felt like a confidence crisis. I don't know what to do with this, and I'm just not going to. So I had to sit still. It wasn't even like I could make a choice to make any of those changes, but I came to a place where I was supported enough, whether in my relationship or whatever, to just be able to say, I'm not going to solve it. I'm not going to fix it. I'm just going to sit still and be open and listen and see what comes next, and see if the world falls apart, and see if something inspires me. And I just had to actually physically sit. I couldn't even, if those things hadn't happened for me, those breakdowns and that job loss and that stuff hadn't happened for me, I'd probably still be running around distracted and still trying to fix other things and not have taken that. So it, like you said, you get to a place where you feel supported enough that, you have to do it, or you have, like I did, a breakdown. Like you have, like, everything breaks down and there's no other option. There's no way but to move forward, even if you're not moving at all. Even
No,
if
I don't think there really is. I don't really think there is an option.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, is there? I mean, the point is, once you look at what life is trying to say to you, is trying to communicate to you, is trying to show you, and you have as long as you want till you listen. But I don't know if there is an option. I mean, I know, like I said, I was ill for most of my 20s. I was just, you know, I had really terrible relationships. I had also, you know, went from one job to the next, thinking I could make that work, and you know, I couldn't. And in the end, I was like, okay. So every time I just reached that wall, I listen a bit more because I had to. And I think that's the point for me. That's why I was saying that I think that the way circumstances structured, and also, you know, it's also our own soul, is life is trying to facilitate that connection for us.
Yeah.
And that's why the worst crises that we go through are often where we find that connection. And that's why I would say to anybody going through a crisis that that there is another side to it, and it is an evolutionary path. Even I have still things that I've experienced in my own crises that I have no answer for. I still don't know the meaning of them, or what it means, or some of the things that I've seen. But I know that there's a reason that I've experienced that. And so I think because we are intimately part of evolution unfolding, we've already made our choice. That's why, you know, it can look kind of cruel to think, oh, well, I don't have any free will. I don't get to live the life I want. But actually, you've made the choice to serve your soul in this lifetime as well. So that is the deal of incarnating, actually. You know, one of them, if we want it, because for some of us, we won't have that experience. We won't choose that experience, and that's why I think we simply can't know from the outside in, even when, you know, a lot of us are sensitive and psychic. I still have a lot of respect for people that they don't want to see what's going on. I don't blame them. I mean, you know, we all have the gift of sight. Do you really want to see? I mean, there have been times, there's this quote by Aristotle, you know, the unexamined life is not worth living. And I remember thinking at one point, yeah, but is the examined? Because I actually felt like that at one point. Like, I don't really want to see or experience what my heightened sensitivity that I embraced gave me. I think, you know, it's so, like Patricia was saying, there's a lot of courage involved in that choice too. So, but ultimately, there are so many more benefits from it ultimately. But it is an amazing time where so many more people are aware. And I certainly never. I'm surprised at who I can communicate with at this point, and who really understands. A lot of people, they don't express this, but they know exactly what's going on. You know, in some very surprising places.
Yeah. And conversely, you know, you look around and you see the headlines of the day, and you realize there's so many other people who really don't know what's really going on, and are still in that, you know, place of moving through the system the way it's been set up. So it's just an incredible time to be alive. And I love some of the ways that you present your perspective, because you have quite a few different perspectives than I do too. And so it's nice when people can come together and look at things from another person's viewpoint and just have respect for how other people see things and share. And I really enjoyed this presentation today, and I really enjoyed hearing you, and I'll definitely tune in if you do something else in the future for sure.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed hearing your perspective as well. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, that we do have the ability of sight. And it was funny because I was talking with them. I almost wanted to, I wanted to book a session with her. She just didn't see it. Her Skype wasn't working, and I had sent her a message because I had these moments of awareness. And, when I say, I have all this courage and I'll go there, but I found that there was something that was going on when I had eyes to see. I didn't know what to do in that moment. And there was a part of me that had to have stopped the process because I didn't allow myself to see fully what I was supposed to take away from it. I've had glimpses of my higher being. I've connected on that level. I can have knowings of things that are going to happen now, or we'll see things that are happening in the future. But I've been several times consciously aware that when I'm connected like that, I'll shut it down. Like it's like you're peeking under the curtain and you look, but you took the curtain and you put it back down because you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet.
Yeah. Well, it takes a huge amount of courage to be able to see yourself, see your power. Like we were saying, it's something I still have to relax. You need self-love. Mm-hmm. to also acknowledge the divine aspect of you. You need as much self-love to really take that on board and really integrate it as you do the pain and that other end of your spectrum, where you have to, oh, that's me. And most of us, myself included, we're just more experienced and used to the shadow side, actually. Mm-hmm. So what does it take to really integrate your soul? What does it really take to integrate that loving signature so that you can actually just be completely supported in this incarnation from a soul level? Let me know how you get on with that, everyone.
I actually do have one tip that really has worked for me in that, having gone through this. And I don't know, I'm sorry, I just kind of jumped back on and unmuted because I no longer, just so you know, Patricia, I can no longer see where to raise your hand. Ever since I came on, I can't see that anymore. So I just kind of jumped back in. But so for me, I went through a lot of different things in my life and cleaned up a lot of areas and really wanted to get right with myself and with my energy. And in order to do that, I had to just go for it. I had to just really cut out the crap and make decisions about my life. And with my partner, my family, we made decisions about what we will and will not participate in. And we do that to the best of our ability. And we ticked a lot of people off. Like a lot of members of our family thought we were crazy for a lot of our decisions. A lot of people didn't understand us or respect our decisions. And, it's years on now, few years on of where we've really made changes that people like my dad was like, what? You're going to quit your job? Why would you do that? And, like people just not understanding. And then even getting to a place where I had to be okay with letting everything fall apart, with risking losing respect, my house, finances, different things. And that is very scary for people. That's very scary for people. And I understand it. And I was really scared. Like I was really scared of a lot of the choices that we made. And so that's the one piece of it. Like you have to decide. Yeah. You have to decide. And that's one thing. But here is the biggest thing that I wanted to say. And that is, I came to a place where I recognized in the the being open to what is and letting things take their course and just finding out, is this really something I need to be afraid of? Is there really fear around this? Does it really matter what those people say about me? Does it really matter what those people think? If I quit this job and I do something else, or I do absolutely nothing, what will happen? What will actually happen? And it's like I used to have this belief around money. I used to live, like I said, in survival mode. And I used to feel like, I had a lack mentality around money, and I had a paycheck, and I would think ahead about all the things I would need. And I would just sort of end up with a really thin line between what I was making and what I needed to spend that on. And every month was a struggle, and I knew I can't have that extra thing. I can't do this. I better not do that like all my friends are doing, because there's no other way for me to adjust this income, and I have to live within this budget. And it was like if my car broke down or something, that I wouldn't know what I needed to do that. So like I was always living for a rainy day or in fear, and I had all this. I would go to the mailbox and feel like this rising feeling of, oh shit, what if there's a bill in there? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to go to the mailbox. And I thought, I can't participate. I can't do this anymore. It requires way too much energy. And that's just one example. Like I just felt like it's me. It's my mentality around this lack mentality that is creating the situation where maybe 85% of the time when I went to the mailbox, there would not be a bill there. Mm-hmm. But I would still, every time I go to the mailbox, have that feeling of, what if there's a bill there? How am I going to, whatever. So I started to recognize, and I had some coaches, and I watched some videos and stuff around mentality and all that. This is back a few years ago, but this was one of the defining moments for me in learning about the courage and learning about what actually is true or untrue about how we think about things and how it's all hooked up. Which later, when I made some of these more bigger decisions about my life, I could recall back about how a lot of what I felt and acted upon at the time with this money situation was not actually even true. And if I changed my mindset around it, like if I went to the mailbox with the perception that, if there's a bill in there, it's because obviously some company somewhere has checked me out enough to know that I have the ability to pay it. So if that company has more, has more confidence in my ability to pay that bill than I do, there's something wrong here. And if I don't pay that bill, what's going to happen? That, sure, a month might go by, a couple of weeks, I might get another notice, but it's not the end of the world. It's not enough for me to be feeling adrenaline and cortisol and fear and to be, so I changed my mindset at the time around going to the mailbox and thought, if there's a bill in there, that's a great thing, because that means I have the ability to pay it. It's the day that I stop getting bills that I need to be concerned, And I just started changing my mindset around that at the time. And I did some muscle testing and things shortly after that, after I got my mindset right. And I thought, I really don't have that fear. I'm not feeling that anymore. Did some muscle testing on my belief systems around that lack mentality around money. And I really had shifted it. And that gave me confidence. And I haven't had that issue ever since. But more recently, in the last few years, making all these other changes, I was able to look back at that experience and say, a lot of that wasn't even true. And I was doing that to myself. And it was my own mentality, my own belief systems, my own fears and stuff that were limiting me from experiencing a more loving, right? A more loving perspective, a more abundant perspective, a more supporting of myself perspective of my own life. And nobody was doing that to me but me.
Yeah.
And so, then when I made some of these other decisions more recently about making changes to my life and what are they going to think, and, I respected myself enough to know that a lot of what maybe my father or my mother were going to say to me about my choices had to do with their fears about money or finances or lack or the universe, or whether we live in an abundant world, or whether, they would feel proud of me. It wasn't really about what my choice was, but whether it made them look good, right? So, I kind of recognized, all the stuff that we pick up and what our conditioning, our beliefs, and all that stuff that's kind of rattling around in there. It's not only from our perspective that when we're making choices that limits us, but also by what we think other people are going to think, and so on. And when we can see that they're running similar belief systems and so on and so forth, and it isn't serving them and it isn't serving us or whatever, it gives you a lot more confidence to just say, okay, what do I need from me? What is the truth for me? What's the most self-loving thing for me? Because I'm also projecting onto them a bunch of ways that they might feel about me that they actually don't. That they actually may never think, and who cares at the end of the day?
Yeah.
So this is the point. I'm coming now to the point, and I hope that's been easy for people to follow. But the point is this: I really came, and this is what I move from all of the time now. I call it moving from inspiration rather than need. Mm-hmm. So all of my choices, every single moment of what I go through, like, do I want to answer that email right now? Am I going to invest this time in working? Am I going to do something else? Usually stems, like I'm talking about like 90% of the time, maybe if not more at this point, from an inspired place, because I've made changes in my life. I do work that I love to do. I have my life set up in a way that it all brings me joy. Like I spend my activities in joyous things, so I can move from one activity to the next and not feel like I need to do this, or it's a burden to do that, or I'm not in alignment with my spirit when I do something. So I'm constantly been able to set up my life to move from inspiration rather than need, or from love rather than fear. And it, I think when people go through the process of making changes, instead of thinking about what people will think, or what the fear is, or that I'm going to lose something, or that, people won't respect me, or that all of these things that our egoic mind that wants to keep things how they are come up with, instead we can get to a place that says, how do I feel? What am I inspired by? In this moment, when this thought hits my brain, is it a feeling of love for myself? Is it a feeling of empowerment? Am I inspired by this? If I had to make a move, like in any direction right now, am I being moved by fear or love? And always choose the inspired action, the thing that brings you closer to the joy that you want to feel in the very next moment. So if you move like moment to moment in connection with that, whatever the joy is, whatever the spark is, rather than supposed to, should have, fear of, needing anything, it comes from a place of lack. It comes from not having. It comes from a place of being behind, and it doesn't come from a place of being supported and loved or inspired. So, and always within every moment, we can just change our thinking. We can just change our thoughts to a more inspired version, no matter what it is. It doesn't even matter what it is. If you're going through a time where you have a friend who just lost a parent and they're grieving, even in those moments, you can choose, how you're going to align your energy to that, in a place of being supportive to them, or a place of being supported to yourself in that moment, to be able to support them. Or you can, there's also a choice to spiral down a tunnel and make the situation worse from fear, or say something that's out of alignment because you feel you should. Oh, everything happens for a reason. Well, that's not helpful at all. But it may be the program that we have in our brain that makes us blurt something out at the time, because we're disconnected and we're not thinking, is this an inspired thing to say, or is this a fearful, I don't like this person crying and it's making me whatever, so I'm going to try to be, it's like you're not really thinking, and that's not necessarily an inspired. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. like that's just a bad, like I was trying to search for a bad example where, like the mailbox is a perfect one too, where you have a choice to walk to the mailbox with a good, feeling about yourself, and even if it's a bill. And I don't mean to say that we need to sugarcoat everything and we need to pretend things aren't as they are. I'm just saying we can be empowered in the moment to utilize or have a response ability, like have the ability to respond in a way that doesn't take us out of alignment with our truth and who we really are as self-loving, inspired beings who can, in every moment feel like we hold the keys to our next moment, what that next moment is going to be about.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I've got some other people with their hand raised too, so I need to let them come on. But thank you. And then, Emma, if you have anything you want to say, I'll let you say it, but I'm going to go ahead and put
that was good. Thank you for your wisdom, Christine.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. And okay. Where did she go? Oh, there she is. Okay. Okay, Natalie, you'll just have to unmute yourself. Oh, there, I unmuted you.
Okay. You, for a moment, you just kicked me out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, because you're speaking, from my heart and to my heart so much, and that's you're living proof for what you're talking about, because you are emanating this love, and everyone can just feel it. And there are not even words needed for that. Just looking at you, that's just wow. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. And I also loved what Christine was saying, that we have to follow the joy. We have an inner compass in our heart. There's an inner compass, and we feel what is appropriate for us in this moment. And I know that one thing that is really, really difficult for people that are hurt is to trust. And it's a little bit crazy, because we learn to distrust ourselves. But when there's one person you can trust, it's yourself, your inner compass. Because you feel what is appropriate for you, and we have to learn to make this connection again. And also, this ability to be a little bit bold. To that, I loved it when you said that love is not this sugar-coated and this wrong perception of love. I always have to be nice and kind, and that is love. Of course, being nice and loving, that is expressing love, but sometimes it's being bold and living tough love. And there's one thing I'd like to share, because in my past I've experienced so much abuse, any form of abuse. And last year there came a memory up after 40 years from really, really bad abuse in my childhood. It's been so horrible that it's been suppressed for 40 years. But when that came up afterwards, like every great crisis in life, there has been a huge blessing in it, because from this moment on, I could feel when people were abusive. Because from this moment on, when I had to face this horrible, horrible truth, suddenly I could see and feel truth. And when I looked in the face of someone who acted abusive towards me, my body would react instantly. I would feel as if I have to puke or something like that. I could feel it in my body. Oh, there is someone trying to abuse me in whatever way. And that's been also a moment where I had to be really, really bold. Cutting some cords, kicking out some friends, and cause I couldn't live this way any longer. I had to just be brave enough to stand by my own side and stand up for myself. And this is love. Love is also sometimes saying a no.
Yes.
Yeah. This is love. Yeah. And so that brought me to another point. We came in perfectly. The way we are created, our personality, or our setup is in its core, it's perfect. Yeah. And it's just through our upbringing and education that we are splitting some parts of us apart. That we, as we are not loved, for example, in my childhood, I have not been loved when I stood up for myself. I have not been loved when I spoke out. So I suppressed this part of myself that was able to protect me. And this aspect of mine came in again last year. And that's been really a little bit strange, because that's, to me, this aspect of my personality, I knew always that it's existing. It felt like a male person to me. Like, and I thought, no, I don't like that part, because as I have experienced violence and anger, I thought, no, I can't accept this part of myself, and didn't let it in. But last year, when finally this aspect of my own soul came back and I allowed it, it's been a huge, huge blessing. Because I need this part, and I was afraid of this warrior. And I have to tell you a picture that came in. When I allowed this male aspect to come in, he showed up on my inside like a knight. He's a noble knight. And you know what he did? He showed me a knife and a round table, and he put this knight of truth. He put it on the round table, and then he said, okay, all the other aspects, you're coming in. And you're sitting with me at this table, and now we are working together. And so I just can say, everyone, you are perfect the way you are. You have to accept yourself the way you are. Don't be afraid of yourself. Don't be afraid to be yourself. You are just perfect the way you are. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Natalie. I really want to honor you for breaking the cycle of abuse. That is so courageous and so loving, and such a huge contribution to all those who've experienced that. And I just want to also affirm what you said about love being about saying no. Yes, it is. And I think actually sometimes love takes everything you've got to say no to the people that you love, when it's the right thing to do. And I really, and I know how hard that can be. And so thank you so much for sharing this beautiful wisdom with us, because I can feel that comes from your heart, and so truly powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to also acknowledge what you said about saying no, and Emma supporting you in that as well. When we're saying no, we're saying yes to ourselves, but we're also remember that when we're playing these roles, sometimes these people that have taken on this burden of feeling that they have to project onto us what their expectations are, they need, as much as you need to say yes to yourself, they need to hear you say no so they can be released from the burden of trying to be this influence on you. And that's like releasing that pressure, releasing that role, and stepping into freedom for both of you.
Yeah, wow. That's so beautifully. I'm so glad you brought that up, Patricia, because the point is, what we think is we're letting someone down by saying no, but actually that is acting from love to enable them to know that they can't continue, at least with you, to act in a way that is making them feel terrible about themselves.
Yeah.
So you're giving them, with every no, we're giving each person a chance to change course on that, feeling that the only way they can relate is by abusing people. And once they realize there's another way, that comes from you saying no, that can be the beginning for them or not. But nevertheless, it is the most loving thing you can do for them. And yeah, that's so beautifully expressed, Patricia, too.
Okay, thank you so much, Natalie. Is there anyone else that would like to ask a question or share anything? I'm going to take... Let's see. Okay, anyone else that would like to ask a question or share? You don't have to be shy. We're here to support you if there's anything that you'd like to share. I do have something in the chat. Okay, let's see. I've got a couple of things here. Someone is at work and she says, I can't do video audio, but I've done a lot of inner work over the years. But I feel like I'm at a standstill because I have blocked out memories from my traumatic childhood. I have no memories before the age of 10, maybe just a couple of flashes. I also blocked out an incident in college as well. How do I retrieve these memories so I can face this part of me?
Well, I'm sure we've both got something to say about this, but I mean, I'll just go ahead and say I feel that you really need to trust yourself in possibly the support that you may need to move forward, and really trust yourself in maybe if it feels right to ask for that support. Certain things, especially with trauma, I feel that we all need support from time to time in our lives, and I don't think we can always just provide that for ourselves or get it from friends. Or I know everybody has their own way of being supported through a healing process. So I would really listen to your own heart to feel what that needs to be, and to trust that, maybe to ask for that, so that so that you can feel safe. Sometimes as I mentioned, you can try this. You can try to create a safe space for yourself where you can just be. So don't go trying to wade into the memories of trauma. Just create a safe space for yourself where you can just experience the connection to your into your heart, to your emotions. So it's not about trying to heal the trauma or wading in there. Just create a really safe, gentle space for yourself. And one thing that can be really good for trauma is put one hand on your belly. It's really good for trauma, and just feel the rising and the falling of your breath with your belly. It's really comforting. And put one hand on your heart, and just keep your focus on your breath, and just get used to feeling safe in your own experience. Just create a little space, a little time for yourself. We can just be with yourself in that way. That's one thing. And just get used to start just to start feeling, because you may not need to go straight to the trauma. You may actually start feeling already, get a sense of your soul connection and your core state, and that is kind of what will make sense and guide you through whatever needs healing in that. I personally don't think we always need to approach healing in, we must remove that blockage and we must, because the way that healing works is very natural. It just presents itself emotionally to you when it needs to. So just when it starts to present itself to you, if you need to go and sit with yourself, or at that point maybe choose a level of support if that feels right for you. There's lots of different kind of healing modalities if that feels right for you, because as I said, I think these things are really personal. I myself had a mentor, an energy worker who guided me through a lot of my own healing work, which is sort of part of my spiritual training. And I don't think I could have done that without her. Just to say that I've really benefited from other people supporting me. I don't think I could have accessed that part of myself if I hadn't had the support. And that's also what inspired me to be able to create safe spaces for people to be able to connect in that way. So I'm all for finding the right person, but if you feel you want to stay on your own, there's a lot actually that you can do by creating that safety.
I don't have a whole lot to say to that, because I'm going to say something very similar. For me, my greatest mentor has been Emma, and the way that she communicates is what is healing. And I feel like that's something that she and I share in common. And I feel like that's what I offer to humanity as well, is verbal communication and connecting to energy fields and going heart to heart, soul to soul when you're, holding a space for another person. And it has been through connection, through communication for me, that I've healed the traumas that I've experienced, but it's also allowed me to recognize that I didn't have, it brought back memories that were suppressed, but not every memory has to be brought back, because there's a lot of healing that takes place just in the connection and just in the recognition. And but the things that did come back to me, where they would have been triggering to me and brought back a lot of emotional pain, instead, it was something that I could look at as, oh, wow, this happened. And I could go through and tell about what had taken place in my life and share it with myself in a way that I could see how much different of a person that I am from the healing that's taken place inside of me, but also in the way that I could support a space for someone else and say, well, I'm okay because you can share this with me. It's not going to trigger me in a way that I'm going to react and not be able to support you in it. And and what you said about touching your body, that's really, I do that daily. When I lay in bed, one of the things that I do every night is I will take both of my hands and I let them rest in between my breasts, and I communicate with my heart soul essence. And I also go to my abdomen, and no one's told me to do that. So I just would go to my abdomen And now I've connected with Emma in sessions where we go to my abdomen because she knows that that's an area where things happen for me. And I guess maybe I should say you probably brought that to my attention. You've never said go to your abdomen, but that must have been like something that I automatically connected because that's something I do as well. And I communicate and I feel what's going on with my body. And I have a lot of, not in sleep and dream world, but a lot of remembrance and healing and connection that takes place during that time. So yeah, I resonate completely with what you shared on that. Yeah. And so, okay, we've got 2 more questions in the chat. So maybe one might be a comment. I'm not sure if there's a question, but I'll read it. This is from Tracy, and she says, I have shed a tear during this interview, like a release of recent struggles I have been through recently. I have recently been threatened to keep my mouth shut about speaking my own truth. I say this with no judgment towards this person. I'm here reliving all those times as a child I was told to keep quiet. That was the gift of this person's judgments towards me. He allowed me to take those steps inwards and look at myself. I can get very affected by what other people say sometimes, learning to listen to me more and more rather than other people and what they have to say about me. I have felt disempowered all week long. Listening to this interview is quite emotional. I am able to regain some of the internal power within me. I just want to say thank you for this safe space. I am in the background releasing struggles and returning myself back towards that self-love. I may not join in on the video, but wanted to say a big thank you. I just needed to join in and listen and feel the movements. Thank you so much. I love you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love you too. And thank you for everything you contributed to this space.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you. And if anyone decides that they have a question and they want to, or just something they want to share, if anyone wants to share what they love about themselves, I would love to hear that.
Yeah, let's do that.
But I'm going to read one thing from someone in the chat box, one more, and then I usually don't know what being myself looks like. Luckily, I know what more expansive feels like. Currently at work, so I have to be sneaky. Well, it's funny. So I usually don't know what being myself looks like. Luckily, I know what more expansive feels like.
Yeah, that really speaks to me because, you know, you could, it's very hard to look for yourself, isn't it? That's why I think it's more about experiencing yourself. And yourself is expansive. Yourself is constantly expanding. It's really interesting you use that word because I once had a session because I do a lot of mainly soul connection. There was this one guy and he started connecting to his soul, and I was asking him what he was experiencing, and he just said, I'm just experiencing this expansion. And he carried on explaining it, but what it was that it was actually the universe expanding. And so we both experienced this, and as the universe is expanding, and our soul is a universal expression, so our souls are expanding in harmony with the universe. So it's a beautiful word that you used.
Yeah,
that is our natural state of being, expansion.
Yeah. Okay, anyone brave enough to come on and tell us what you love about yourself? Even if you don't want to come on video. And if you don't want to, I'm not going to ask you and I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to make you feel like you have to say anything. But I just want to make sure that we give everyone the opportunity to share or ask whatever they would like to. Okay. I want to let you close the conversation.
Okay, well, I would like us all just to just take this moment to feel where we feel love in our bodies. So just relax, take a deep breath, really relax your body and see where you feel love in your body. And just bring all your awareness to that. And let it be exactly, let that love be exactly what it is. So allow it to move or expand or contract or whatever it wants to do. Let it be how it is. And allow yourself to experience it 100%. See how it feels, if there's a color, if there's a texture, or even a temperature, or what's going on in your body as a response to the awareness of that love. And I want you to be aware that that love that you feel is the truth of you reflecting itself to you right now. So receive all of the love that is being offered to you. And I thank you with all my heart. I love you and I celebrate you.
And Christine says, thank you both so much. I love that I am joyful and experiencing more freedom than ever before. I feel love in my solar plexus. That has been beautiful. I have to go now to pick up the kids. Love this. Thank you. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Emma. It's always beautiful to connect with you. And we got Patrick is saying, grateful for all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Patrick, and I'm grateful for you too.
Me too. Thank you, Patrick.
He shared about it being expansive and not being knowing what he looks like, but being expansive.
Beautiful. Good to meet you at last.
Yeah. And thank you so much for allowing me to feel the love I have inside for myself, from Carol.
Love you, Carol.
Thank you. All that's been amazingly beautiful. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Okay. Well, thank you, Beauty. I love you so much. I love everything that you've shared today. The effect that this will have on everyone that hears it. You are, to me, just a living example of what living in authenticity and integrity and love is. And I love you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. It's just been it's been so beautiful to be able to connect with you. Thank you for creating this space, this beautiful sacred healing space. I am honored to be here, and I love you too.
Yeah. All right. I love you. I love all of you, and thank you.